Hi everyone, it's Liam here from Rating the Races. So this is part 2 of the handicap horses from the weekend, or from last week. Some of these again don't go up in the... I think most of them go down, but there's a couple that have just stayed as they were. So let's get on with them and talk about them and whether I think they've dropped well enough. The first one is simply the bets. Now, he finished 5th of 5 over 3 mile in the Fusel Chase. And he doesn't stay 3 mile. They tried it at Aintree, he pulled up. They tried it at Cheltenham, he's finished 5th of 5. He doesn't stay the 3 mile. You would imagine that he's going to go back into handicaps and back for the plate, but he only dropped £1 to 156. He's finished 2nd off 153 over the 2.5 at Cheltenham. He's finished 6th off 157. He's finished 2nd off 154, and he's 1 off 149. So the 156, I think it's like just about right for him. That's his mark. But there's going to be something else in the race. There's going to be 2 or 3 in the race, surely, that are ahead of their mark. If there was, if it looked a standard handicap somewhere, his mark could be workable. But I think come Cheltenham, there's going to be a couple that have been targeted or given a slightly better campaign, so that they're low enough that they can actually make an impact, rather than, I think, simply the bets is right at the very top. But I always talk about horses that I've followed a little bit. Yeah, he just didn't stay at the 3 mile. He is a 2.5 mile horse. I can't imagine they'll try and get another run into him before Cheltenham. If they do, and then he drops another couple, he might be interesting. But off his 156 mark, I think he would be carrying too much weight, or he'd be at his mark, whereas there's going to be something unexposed or ahead of its mark in the race. One of those could be Zanza. Zanza dropped £1 on collateral form down to 145. I think he's now dropped... Did he drop 3 for his pulled up effort and now his collateral? He just hated the cheap pieces, I think. You take his previous run when he was 2nd off 145, which is what he's back down to. That's a better reflection of his ability. So he's finished 2nd in a decent handicap at Cheltenham over the course and distance. He's got to be interesting for the plate. I still think there's more to come. He is unexposed, and the faster pace should suit him. So he's a potential for the plate at the Cheltenham Festival on what day is it? It's Thursday. Moving on to a horse who is very well handicapped, just not putting it all in at the right time at the moment, is Captain Nor. I felt he made a couple of mistakes at crucial times. He did get hampered once, and he also slipped once and almost came down. He still ran well for 3rd. He's done all right. But the handicapper dropped him another £2. He's down to 127. At the moment, off 127, he's going to struggle to get into any handicap. I looked at the Kim Muir. He won't probably get in the Kim Muir. He wouldn't get in the Ultima. Where could they go with him? Obviously, he was 5th last year in the Bet365 Gold Cup at Sandown. He probably wouldn't get in that at the moment. So they've got to find him a race that they can win soon. And I think that race could be the Grimthorpe back at Doncaster. So he's now finished 3rd in the Skybet Chase twice. He's very well handicapped. The extra distance will be fine. And also he would be taking on lesser opposition. The fact he can get in the handicap suggests, although it's a decent handicap, the Grimthorpe, it doesn't often attract a huge field, and it doesn't often attract the really, really good handicappers. When is it? Let me just double check the date. It's the 5th of March, so that's probably why. A lot of the horses are being saved for Cheltenham, so it's a slightly easier race, and that's where I'd be targeting Captain or the Grimthorpe Chase, because he's going to struggle to get in anything else. And if he doesn't run anywhere before the Bet365 Gold Cup, he probably won't get in that. So that would be a reason to try and get a win into him soon. The next horse I want to talk about is Fusel Raffles. He dropped £2 for his 5th over 3 mile. Again, another horse who I'm not convinced stays the 3 mile trip. You'll look through his form and you'll see he's got a 1st there at Wetherby. That was in the Charlie Hall when Shan Bleu was miles clear and fell. So Fusel Raffles was going to finish 2nd, but a well-beaten 2nd. And I don't think he quite stays the 3 mile trip. As I said in a previous video, I think the horses he then beat don't want those trips. Kitty's Light was second. That was far too short for Kitty's Light. There's other horses in the race that wouldn't have wanted the 3 mile at Wetherby. So I think he's won it despite the trip. And he didn't stay, I don't think, at Doncaster. That means he's now dropped £3 from his 4th when he ran a good race here at Cheltenham in December, and he's £3 lower. That would be, he's handicapped nicely, whereas like Simply the Bets probably isn't. Finishing 4th behind Cool Cody, Zanza and Midnight Shadow, there's nothing wrong with that form. It's good form. So I think Fusel Raffles dropping another £2 down to 149 is very interesting. He's surely going to end up in the plate as well. There's quite a few from this video, or these videos, that have been for the plate. Hopefully they don't all turn up, because then it makes it tricky for me to find an angle. But we'll see come race day who's actually in it. Moving on, we go to Magic Saint, who dropped £2 to 145. And interestingly, in the interview with Paul Nicholls after the race, he said he wanted Tom to be a little bit more prominent. He just felt he got a bit outpaced at the wrong time. They kicked away at the wrong time. And I thought that was interesting, because he's clearly well handicapped now. When he was second at Cheltenham at the back end of last season, he ran off a mark of 157. Well, he's now £12 lower. So he is well handicapped. I do wonder whether they'll go back for the Topham. He pulled up last year at 5 or 6 from home, when it was clear the jockey, I think the tack broke or something went wrong. There was nothing wrong with the horse. He just pulled him up. And you could kind of see there was nothing wrong. 5 days later, he then went to Cheltenham and ran a blinder, finishing second. Well, if the Topham was the plan, you'll imagine they'll go back there this year off a much lower mark. And I think if he stays to the trip and jumps those fences and the tack holds up this time, I think he'll go quite close in the Topham. This was the race he was second in last year. You can see he went 92% shorter. He went 2.32. So what's that? 7-4? Just over 7-4 in the run. So he ran a good race. That's where they could go if the Topham fails again. The next horse is one that I'm going to highlight, but I don't really like doing what I'm going to do. So people talk about horses being well handicapped, and he looks like he can win next time. Where? You haven't told us where or what type of race, or you could say Solo, for example, doesn't like Cheltenham. He's been there twice now. He's ran poorly. So just to say he's well handicapped, he'll win next time, is rubbish, because if he runs at Cheltenham, I don't think he'll win. So I think those types of comments are lazy. And I think this is kind of going to be one of those, unfortunately. He dropped £2 to 137, and I do think he's well handicapped, but I'm not totally sure where they can go with him yet. I'm thinking they might wait a little bit until Ayr for Scottish National Day, but I'm not sure, and I know they don't usually like to wait that long. They might go somewhere else first. If they do, I'll then have a look at the race to see whether I agree with it and whether I think the conditions suit. If he went to Sandown, might not be that interested. If he went to Kempton, he finished 12th over 2.5 at Kempton. He's also won at Kempton, so that one I'd have a look at if he went to Kempton. But if he turned back up at Cheltenham, I wouldn't be that keen on him at all. So although people say they found a well-handicapped horse, or he's interesting dropping a few pounds, why? Tell us where you think he can then go. Otherwise, I think it's quite lazy journalism or punditry. But in this instance, I can't find an angle for Solo. Moving on to the next horse, Demachine. Now, I think Demachine's interesting because he dropped £4 for that. He went off 5-1 for a Skybet Handicap Chase. And he dropped £4. And I think that was a bit quick to drop him £4. Okay, something went wrong or we didn't like. Might have been the ground was too fast at Doncaster. Something didn't quite work for Demachine. He's not run to his best of his abilities. And you'll initially look at the form and go, well, he's had 2 poor runs now. He unseated at Ludlow at the first. Forget that run. Let's have a look at the one before that. He was 5th in the Labrador Trophy. There is nothing wrong with that form at all. So, in my opinion, he's had 1 bad run, and you can totally forgive a horse 1 bad run. You can forgive him a couple of bad runs if there's excuses, or reasons, or you can find an angle. So dropping £4 I think is very lenient. Where can you go with him? The Swinley Chase, where is it? Oh no, have I loaded up the wrong day? This is it? Is it? Let me just pause the video whilst I find it. I'm blind, it's right there in the middle of the screen. Swinley Chase, over 3 miles. Demachine has good form at Ascot. He's won and he's also finished second to Remastered. Over the course and distance, that's surely where he goes, the Swinley Chase. It's a handicap. He's dropped in the weights. He's only had the one poor run. I wouldn't be giving up on Demachine if you backed him at Doncaster. Moving on to a couple that ran in Ireland. Chris's Dream dropped £2 for his run at Gowran Park in the Thaces Chase, and it was quite an interesting run. I thought he started to make ground, and then the jockey looked very... Mike Walsh was very gentle on him. Didn't really do much. He almost kind of said, if you get there on your own, you get there on your own. If you don't, you don't. I'm not going to do anything. And he started to make ground, and then he dropped away again slowly. Now, I quite like him for the Grand National. I thought he was running a good race last year in the Grand National when he unseated. He unseated only about 4 from home, and was still there when he just got a little bit low and unseated. You know, I think it was only in fifth or fourth or fifth. Now he's dropped in the weights, and he dropped another £2, as I said, to 160. I had in my head that if he was 160 or below, then he becomes interesting, and he's bang on 160 now. He has got an entry in the Grand National. I think he's quite interesting at a big price. He also ran in the Topham earlier this year. Topham or the Beecher? The Beecher, sorry. He also ran in the Beecher, and at the Canal Turn, the horse turned and the jockey didn't. The jockey fell off. It was quite interesting. I think the jockey blamed the wind. I know it was windy, but I'm not sure because everyone else held on. Anyway, I think it could be interesting for the Grand National. One horse I'm really keen on for the Grand National is Iscario 10, and again has been entered. Go and watch his run when he was 8th. He was prominent, then he dropped back, and I think the jockey kind of, let's just see if we can get a little bit closer, and he got too close. I think he got too close, and the jockey was probably panicking, thinking we're going to win a Thaces Chase here. If we win a Thaces Chase, we ain't winning a Grand National. He didn't win. He appeared to get tired late on. It was his first run since April, since running in the Irish National. Yeah, I think he might have one more run, and then he'll be in the Grand National, and I really like him. I think you can still get 33s about Iscario 10. If you can, I think that's a good price for him. I'm sure that's where they'll be heading. The final horse I want to talk about is a horse called Biggstown. Now, he's another interesting one for these types of videos. Normally, I look for horses that have dropped. He hasn't moved. He didn't move off 130, and I can understand why. As I mentioned in a previous video, he'd had plenty of runs over fences. He'd had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That was his 8th run over fences, and he's yet to win one. But I think that was his best run over fences at Cheltenham, and I think he's just bumped into one. And you can kind of agree that the winner's put the handicap has put the winner up £8, but he's left Biggstown alone. And it was really only those two from a long way out, Biggstown and Imperial Aura, that could win the race. So if you take Imperial Aura out of the race, Biggstown would have gone up, but because he's had so many runs, he hasn't. So where could they go with him off his 130 mark? Because it's quite low, and he's probably not going to get in the feature handicaps potential, especially at Cheltenham, for example. Well, if we look back through his form, he's actually had a win here over 2 mile 5 at Warwick. Let's have a look. There is a 2 mile 4 handicap chase on the 25th of this month. It's a decent prize money. That's where I think we'll see Biggstown. And as I mentioned in the other video, it was interesting that Ben from Narrowing the Field also spotted Biggstown. And he said the 9-year-old is one that travels oh so well in his races, but once again he seemed to fail to get up to the Cheltenham Hill, taking his form at the track to 2.953p. 1 place and no wins, compared to 2, 3, 4, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 5 places and 2 wins at other tracks, and he actually mentioned Warwick as being a track that should suit him more. This is where it is. He's got the form at Warwick. I think that's where he'll run next. Surely that's where he runs next. That looks an obvious one for me. But we know what trainers and owners are like. They throw some really strange targets out there, and Biggstown ends up running in the Bet365 Gold Cup at the Cheltenham at Sandown at the end of the season over 3 mile 4. I don't know. Yeah. So anyway, there's a few thoughts from some horses. This is the second video. I think that takes it to about 32 minutes for the all of the horses. I hope you enjoyed it all. I hope it gives you something to work on and it's interesting. All thoughts and feedback is always appreciated. Thanks for listening.